thought I'd show you something today, and it's something that can only be seen to be understood. So, while you possibly can't see my mouse pointer, please bear with that. One of the biggest problems I've had is in trying to design what I'm doing working with lace8. So, this is lace8, and here are some of the things that wind me up while I'm trying to do this. So, one of the first things that you'll see is there are some rulers. Now, these rulers are fine, but they have some quirks. So, for example, if I get this to work, it's not always entirely clear. There it is. If I move that just over a bit, I can make it so that 0's not quite in the corner, and we have offset by a bit over a centimetre, but so that it's up there. But if you also notice, 0 is this line here, but all the way over there for this. Well, I didn't change this one. How can I make that square? Now, sometimes it's square, sometimes it's not. But this means that, you can sit there and you can count and you can make your stitches along 0 so you can be sure you've got the width that you want. And that's great. Wonderful. Not exactly intuitive, because the blue line that you get is infinitely small, very pale, and really hard to see. And while there can be an orange one up here, so if I do it again, you can see that there is... I see. I missed that. Okay, so what you can do is, a bit like Excel, if you look very, very carefully just where the tab for the thing is, if I move my mouse up and down, it's moving up and down. But it doesn't show on the actual sheet of dots moving up and down. No. That would be far too simple, my dear friend. So, let's move it over a bit. And there. So, yeah, that's a bit more reasonable. But still, 0's now here, even though I said it to be over here. How does that work? Right. And this orange line is now half drawn and will disappear eventually. Because it's not being refreshed. As a programmer, I can tell you that. One of the next problems I have with the rulers, and I worked out only this morning what actually is the problem. So, let me open... Oh, no. What's that? Yeah, that'll do. Right. We have my test square from my insanity square, right? And I put it in the middle there because, I put it in the middle. Now, if you look at the ruler, obviously 0's at the top. I've got 49 to the right and 22 down. If I scroll with my mouse wheel, the rulers do not move. Now, we are used to these days scrolling with mouse wheels because, it is scrolling. The only way to make the numbers move is to grab the scroll on the side. But it also means if you scroll it up a little bit, so it still shows 1, and now scroll, it suddenly jumps. So it makes it really hard to place things accurately because, you're used to mouse scrolling. Secondly, there's this. So you select a group of things, copy, paste. Now on this occasion, it's showing them all. Great. Wonderful. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it only shows you some of them. So if I cancel out that, it's possible. Sometimes it doesn't. And it's not always predictable. Well, of course, If it's not going to show you a predictable amount of it, well, that's kind of a problem. I was hoping it was going to do it a bit quicker than that, because usually it's as you've been working around and you try and take a pattern and copy some chunks out of it. So if we open, I don't know, square one, right? So this is the original square, and I put some lines in it so I could see my triangles. So if I do some select, actually let's do it with this. So if I grab that, copy, paste, but if you look, not all the dots are visible. So if you look down, if you look at what I copied on the left and what I've copied on the right, I copied a straight line on the right, but if you look, the dots are not all showing. They're not all there. So again, if you're trying to then put some things together, even though it shows that I selected them all, I know it's hard to see, and of course I can't necessarily zoom in to show you very well, but if I now move here, you will see that to the right of my screen, not only are some dots dots, some dots are circles, but not all of them are there. So if I line it up with the top, which is easier said than done, where it should be, you will see that almost that there's just these like missing bits or extra bits. It's hard to tell which. So there should be like 2 clear rows of dots to the right of the spiders. But if I do this, there's a load missing. If I scroll down a bit, we'll ignore the rulers. And, oh look, now it's leaving bits all over the screen. I hope this is catching it. It's leaving bits everywhere. I'm not pasting it. If I cancel it, they all go. So if I paste it again, and you can see on the right still that sometimes they show, see there should be 2 rows of dots to the right of the spiders, there's none. If I move it slightly, you can see a load of circles to the right, but still a load of missing ones. If I line them up with the dots and hit paste, only once it's finalised and I've right-clicked to cancel it and moved away and done everything, they all show up. Well, this makes adding bits and duplicating bits and so incredibly difficult. You also can't use control and scroll wheel to zoom in and out, which is really annoying. And you have to use the thing down the bottom. But if I now go back up, let's scroll back to kind of normal. So, it is all there. It does do it. But while you're working with it, you almost can't rely on some of these things to paste it. And of course, let's say you design this. Let's say I design this. Now, this is seen as apparently as a benefit. I do not share this, so you pick a grid and you say I'm going to do it by, I don't know, 3mm. This is huge, by the way. So you do it by 3mm, and you look at it, and so you should have diagonally 3mm between a dot. And I can tell you now that it does not end up as 17 and a bit centimetres, right? Tell you that for starters, because at 2.4, which obviously is denser, maybe it does, but I don't think it does. It's also not square, if you notice. Even though it's square, it's not. So it says that it's nearly 18 centimetres there, but anyway, if you go to print, it remembers the old grid. Why can't you just have a button to default it to whatever you designed it to be? Because, well, that was the one that told you how big it was. Right? There is no carrying on to here. And let's say you've been working on it for months, you go to print. There is no way of telling what from here, what your setting is. If you go back into the ruler, where is it gone again? Rulers. You can only set a new one. You can't view the old one. There is nothing down here that says how big the definition is. There is nothing. There is absolutely nothing that says what you designed it at to get, and what you need to print it at to get the size that you were working out to. Utterly infuriating. So you have to remember. So what you have to do is work out your size and then go to print and set it in the print screen and then save it so that you then get the two matching. Otherwise, in a week's time when you've been doing other things, you will have gone. So, for example, if I go and change this, change to 3. So use it to find millimeters, diagonal 3. Okay. So now it's huge. I now have to save. And I'm going to save as something else because, well, right? But that is the only way you can make a note of what this is designed at. And to be honest, when I spoke to her, she said, oh, well, they design it a much bigger resolution so they can see it. Ain't that what Zoom for? Surely that's what Zoom's for. Why would you just zoom in so you can see? Surely, right? So if I now close out of that and open my original square, right? We can see that that was just under 15 centimeters. And if I open X, where it is, right? Now it's, it's just under 18. And the only way to find out what that grid is here on the print screen, as long as you saved it. It's lunacy. It makes it, and then there are other bugs. There are bugs I can crash it, and so for example, earlier today, hang on, let's close this because that was a stupid thing. Right, so no, I don't want to save it. Motifs can be fun. So you have a motif. I've made some, bought some, welcome some. So, you get a motif, you say, I want that one, and you can place it. Great. You can have, you can make lots of, complicated spiders like this. Of course, I can't use that one at the top, even though there is one at the top. It's not letting me use the one at the top, so I can't do it. But you can put your motifs down, and you can select stuff and save it as a motif, so you can make your own, which is a good thing. But I've run into problems with motifs where it's kind of funky, for want of a better word. It's oh look, me making picos. So for example, if I spot, I can make picos, and I mark them as special picos by putting little orange circles around them. So I made that. But if I look through for things, some of them, it can be difficult to make some of these things. So, for example, if you do the freehand artist, let's zoom in a bit so that you can see. If you do, I'm going to spot between, so I'm doing like cloth stitch, right? You can do this. and you're done, right? If you notice, it automatically puts the dots in, which is nice, and shortens the thing. But if I start and I go, right, well, I want to continue, and I actually need to do it a bit more. If you click at the end, you get this bar, which is infinitely annoying. But sometimes you do this, and it doesn't continue on. It doesn't act like it's part of the same thing. And in fact, if you select them all, and you go select duplicate elements, and I don't know, you make them tolerances, I don't know, 10 pixels, right? It's got duplicates. Because when you started, it put in a new dot, even though there was a dot. So you have to then go around and tidy up after yourself. And I want to get rid of that because it annoys the crap out of me. Trail Artist works very, very similarly. Like this. But doesn't put the dots. Smooth Curve is really cool in a lot of ways. We'll do it if it's slightly bigger. And you'll see why in a minute. But here are some of the other portions that get on my nerves. So you can make shapes, and more to the point, filled shapes. So let's say I want to make a triangle for the top of my bookmark. I'm going to make a filled shape, and let's say I want it to start here, the point to be, let's put a dot in actually. We want the point to be there, and we want it to go out to, actually that's not in a straight line, that one, and it's hard to count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there. So that would be the triangle that I'm after. So that's the shape I want to fill. So you can try doing this, but as you notice, it doesn't center. So let's try that with starting there. Well, that's not really centered either because it's missed all of them out. Try starting there. See, that kind of worked, but didn't fill across the bottom. You have to play guess, and of course, guessing is not the answer. The same's true with things like some of the other shapes. So, for example, if you want a diamond, you don't pick the top corner and get a square diamond necessarily. I mean, you kind of do, but as I've just proved, if you make a square, so let's put some dots and make a square. Dot, well, a rectangle is probably more accurate, but right, that's kind of square. We're going to put a shape in the middle of that. If I do that, that is actually for once in the middle, but it's not, it doesn't always feel accurately in the middle. That one, see, when I let go, that dot's there, but it's no longer in the middle. If I do that again, dot to dot, so the edges of the dotted lines here, not that you can see my hand, I'm pointing to it like an idiot. The dot, the centre point of the diamond on the left is flush with the dots. The centre point on the right is flush with the dots. The top is flush with the dots. The bottom is flush with the dots. Moment I hit left, this is now halfway between and not to here. It misses this whole set of dots down the side. So there's a whole chevron of dots because these points were in the dots at the time when you hit go. So it's missed all of these. So now the only true real way to get them in is to go and put them in. Now the same is true with selecting dots. So let's make a rectangle because, you know, they're cool. fillet full of dots. If I select a group of dots, so I go from that dot and I want to basically leave one row of dots. Well, that's not what I selected. You have to overshoot. So if I want, and of course it automatically forgets that you selected group. So if I want to leave a row on the right, I need to do that. I need to go below and on top of it. What lunacy is this? So there's a whole load of things like this that I find using this program really, really difficult. And on top of that, the performance of drawing it, I mean, even with the motif, as I said, right, let's go to, grabbing a motif again. As it draws around, it flickers and bits disappear, and I've got a really high-powered machine. This does not struggle with this. This should not be struggling. The only reason it struggles is because it's badly written. Or it could be better written, let's be more accurate. It is not well done. And the whole fact that you can't, control a mouse wheel to zoom in, or in fact, you can do whole loads of things, but you can, all you can do with your scroll wheel, no matter what you press, is, yes, it moves. It doesn't move. Now, it's good if you want a relative ruler. It's not very often, though, is it? So this morning, no, I don't want to do that. Cancel. I know I could have done it from there. I was setting up my whole window. So I've made it 43 centimetres wide, and if I scroll down with this, otherwise it doesn't work, and it's really jerky, somewhere around about here, it's just over 93 centimetres long. The problems I had making this, because yes, you can zoom in, can't really work with it like that. See, now these dots have suddenly gone funny. All I've done is zoom in and zoom out, and these dots have gone funny on the right. Now it looks like some form of weaving expedition. It's because it suddenly started drawing the dots, right? Now you can make those dots smaller, and that helps. But when you're trying to aim for them, you want the large dots. It is very difficult, I find, to do this. Which reminds me, select duplicate. Are you doing it? Are you not doing it? Are there none? Oh, there we go. So it says there are all of these duplicates. Okay. Well, in which case, get rid of them. Because, well, I don't need you doing harder work than you. It just means that, for me, trying to design a window and planning out maybe what I want it to look like, because I've had a really good idea this morning. Seriously, my brain's gone, yeah, let's do this. Yeah. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to draw it on this, but I'm going to try. It is just really complicated. Now, one more thing. So let's go back here. One of the other things you can do, and she's got to remember where it is now. Where is It's not under rulers. Grid options. Here we go. So this is a thing. So for Buck's Point, for example, you would have a 60-degree angle. There you go. When you pick a motif, so you might think, oh, that's all right. You pick a motif. Let's pick a little one. Let's pick a small one. Pick a spider. Well, of course, it's designed for torsion. It does not move. And, of course, I now can't go and change the zoomage because I was in a thing. So let's zoom in a bit and do that again. Pick a spider. You will see that the points don't line up. Well, in my mind, it'd be so much more helpful if the points line up with the points, if you know what I mean. So then you end up making your own. Now, these are designed for a 54-degree grid, but Bucks is usually 60. So you have your little honeycomb rings, for example. But these don't fit because this is a 60-degree grid. Well, so then each time you want to do something, you've got to remake all of the motifs for a different grid. Yawn. So hence there are, for example, me making hexagons. Oh look, there's a dot missing at the top. Right? But there's me making hexagons. Oh no, there aren't. It was just the paste. So there you go. That was me putting motif in, thinking the dot was missing. No, it's not. It's there. But I just didn't get to see it while I was placing it. Well, what else don't I see when I'm placing a motif? It's... Yeah, sometimes it shows it all, sometimes it doesn't. And it may... I just find all of this very disappointing when you've paid for a product, when you report the problems, and... You know, having spoken to the lady who makes it, if I explain it to her technically, in a computery fashion, she doesn't understand and doesn't pass it on. If I explain it to her in a lace8 fashion, she passes it on to the dude who writes it, but he doesn't get it because it's not technical. And it's... I almost don't know how they ever made the program, because the two do not seem to be able to communicate. So that you can demonstrate really clearly issues like I have here, where dots don't show up, things don't work, things select, one square off, all of this. And she's never fixed a thing. They've never fixed between them a single thing. There are no updates for this program. I actually bought this program years ago because I had a bit of an inkling my brain cells were in a lace mood. So I bought the program nearly 10 years ago, and in 10 years there has been no updates. Not one. Well, first of all, that's probably why it's slightly ineffective, because I'm sure there are better ways of doing it. But when you have problems and you can't get them resolved, and they're really illogical things. One of the other things is that lots of things with this are not entirely logical or obvious how to do them. Do you know what the answer is? Oh, there's a £34 book you can buy on how to do it. I shouldn't have to, after spending £100 and something on a piece of software, I shouldn't have to buy your £34 book on how to actually make it do what should be reasonably intuitive. Now, yes, there might be some minor quirks that, did you know? So, for example, if you do File, New, and you can then, there's a template, there are templates. And so, for example, there are, round ones. Great. That's a good laugh. There are round ones. So you can make a deliberately round item. It's... But of course then none of your grid stuff's going to work. None of your motifs are going to be worth anything to you. Which is why it's annoying that it doesn't line with the dots, if you know what I mean. So it literally remembers the pattern that was on the screen at the time. It doesn't shape it into the dots and the grid layout of... So there are random things. So you can have some with grid lines, but then of course you can't really see what you're doing, so kind of not my thing. But there are things you can do which are clever, which is you can put things on different layers so that you can, if like my squares, if I was making a square, I don't know if I actually did do it with my square, hang on. Where's my square? I think it's that one. No, that's not it. I made a number of squares. I forget which is the actual square. Square 3. No, that's not it either. Open. Square B. That's pretty, but that's not what I was after. Where's the preview one? You can preview them. Takes a while. Shut up, dog! Curtain the square. So, if I... Can we please not be so loud and annoying? Hang on, there looks to be someone in my garden. Hang on a moment. Oh, it's the Amazon man. It's alright. But, so if I lock the layers, right? Sometimes you can then select things and sometimes you can't. So if I group things, if I try and group select it, it's now not group selecting anything. Excuse me. Children! But you could, if you painstakingly, let me go back. Amy, shut up. For God's sake. If you go back and you then, I've got to turn the grid snap off. Because I know it sounds stupid, but grid snap for selection is just stupid. So you got to freehand and you have to try and draw around like this, which is really, really hard. So, oops, that's not going to be right. Gonna have to add a bit later. So let's just kind of grab those, right? And I want to add that one. But you see, that's the other thing. You can't shift to add to your selection. I think it's control. Is it control? Item select. Yeah, it's control on this one, not shift as it is on many programs. So, you try and select your things. So, you select those. And then you go, so it's control, but you can't unselect them. You can only add. So you can't unselect one. So if you selected one too many, you have to start again. And it's just things like this make it really, really difficult. And I hope that's giving you an insight as to why sometimes I struggle with the motivation to work with lace8. As I said, there are some great aspects to it, and it does make it a real pleasure. You can make your things, you can print them out, you can colour code it a bit. Yeah, not much good for a black and white printer, but you know, you can color code a few things. You can put in annotations. You could, so for example, if I zoom in, hang on, a lot. As you can see, these don't quite line up for some reason. Whatevs, right? But what you can do is you can, she says, wondering why I can't select these lines. There you go, there's one. If you select a line, you can add the number of twists to it, so you can, you know, make it stand out, and you can put in that, you know, there's 2 twists between here or whatever. So I mean, this is not something you'd want to do in a hurry, but for example, you could do that. Oh, that's because of course I've turned off snap into grid. Hang on, snap to grid. Let's do it as trail artist and not add grid. So we poke to poke, and of course now it's sticking out the top and looks really stupid. But if we hang on, let's try that again. We want to go from there to there, right? We can then, if you're really lucky, select it and put 2 twists on it. And I don't see it putting 2 twists on it. But you can. I mean, I told it to. Twists. 2. And it's eating itself or something. You can see my problem now, can't you? Why, you know, it should be that simple. It really should be, you know, I've drawn a line, add 2 twists to it. Twists. It should, and usually does, add twists to it. But it's not on this occasion. Maybe it's because I did the freehand artist. But it's just kind of disappeared into oblivion. Let's do that. See if that will. No. Hang on. And now, of course, it won't undo it. That's just as well I picked a other spot that I don't need. Let's try that again. Freehand artist from there to there. I want to select that. I want to add 2 twists to it. See, you can see I've moved away, but it took ages for it to undo that, and it's not put the twists on it. What the fuck? I mean, am I missing something? Doesn't look like it. But it's just not putting the twists on it. And if you notice, these dots line up. These don't. They've wandered out of sync. Painful. It is. And so as you can imagine, I had a lot of fun not making my square, because all the things that I wanted to do kind of fought me along the way. And as I said, you know, changing width, you can change the size of things, you can make the line fatter, which is nice. I like that you can make the line fatter, but if it's not adding the twists to it, oh, there they go. Oh, now it's when you click on things. So, to add twists, she says, finally working it out, you have to have selected the square, the line, or you don't get the option to add twists. You say 2 twists, you now have to click on it for it to where you want it to add the twist. Well, on the line, no, right? Oh, my head hurts. And this is exactly why. I mean, this is why they have a £34 book explaining to you how to use some software that should be relatively intuitive because, well, you know, you've only got a small number of options, and, you know, clicking, nothing's happening. Oh, suddenly it appears. It's really struggling, and there's no reason for it to be struggling. Absolutely none. None at all. I've got more memory and more stuff than you can shake a stick at. And yet it seems to struggle. It's... Anyway, I thought I would share with you why today this is, you know, this is what I'm working with and how frustrating it is when you cannot bond with the tool that you're working with, that it doesn't work in an intuitive way compared to nearly everything else in the world that you use. And while being different is not wrong, there are certain user interface things that are inevitably traditional, and the fact that they don't work is hard going. And so thank you for bearing with me. I hope that you know, if you're looking and struggling with lace8, that maybe this has proved to you it's not you, it is the tool. So I shall go back to trying to design my curtain. And of course, the other thing is my head hurts already. Speak to you soon.